Welcome to Cotton. We have a special interview today with Yogendra Yadav, and he is an excellent scholar, a social and political activist. So, straight away, I would like to go to the interview. And first, you are a constant critic of Congress Party. Now you have joined the Bharat Jodo Yatra. How and why?
Thanks, first of all, for this opportunity to address the audience in the Northeast, which is something I have always looked up to and always wanted, because it's a very special kind of audience in our country. Look, your principles are not about being for a party or against a party. You are for some principles. If the party is for those principles, you support it. If the party is against those principles, you oppose the party. Saying I'm always a Democrat, I'm always a Republican is no principle. People like me started their journey by opposing the Congress. Not just recently, back to 1977. My interest in politics and faith in democracy came in the 1977 election after emergency, when Mrs. Gandhi was defeated. My initiation in politics, student politics, youth politics, was in the 80s, when the Congress was the establishment and we were anti-establishment. And right in the Lokpal movement, where we on the street opposed the Congress party, the regime that we saw at that point as a very corrupt regime. And I have absolutely no regret about any of those roles. Today, the situation is different. Today, the biggest challenge is not someone's corruption. Corruption continues to be a challenge. Today, the challenge is not only to democracy. Today, the challenge is to very existence of republic. Today, the existence is to our nation state. Today, the challenge is to our constitution. And in today's context, if I say, no, I've always been a critic of Congress party, no, whatever they do, I will oppose them, that's stupid. I said very harsh words about the Congress party after 2019 election, when an election which I saw to be critical in the country's history, and it's actually proven to be critical. I said 2019 election, BJP's return could seriously threaten our constitutional democracy. And I said Congress did not even seriously take them on. And that's why I said, ये कहते हैं ना, मर जाओ तुम अगर तुम ये नहीं कर सकते. So while people remember I had said Congress must die, they don't remember why I said Congress must die. I said I said, because you are not taking on the BJP, you are the largest party, this is your first responsibility. If you cannot do this, you might as well die. Today, the condition is much worse than 2019. We have had 370, almost abrogated. In 1-2 hours, a state goes away. What is federalism today? Today, we have CAA. Remember, CA is still a law in this country. They have not framed the rules, but it is still a law.
Yeah, it's a law.
You actually, with one stroke, you have created two categories of citizenship in this country. In this country, there are two first-class citizens and second-class citizens. We have today, we can just decide to have bulldozer. Tomorrow, the government can say, we don't like Mr. Paresh Malaka. Let's have a bulldozer on house. And overnight, the DM will invent some reasons why your house had to be demolished. And the courts and everyone are just watching this. And today, we have a situation where the Home Minister of the country, in a public meeting, says, we taught them a lesson in 2002. This man is responsible for my safety, for your safety, for the safety of everyone living in Dhubri, everywhere else. He says we taught them a lesson. Is this democracy? So in that situation, if I were to say, no, I disliked a party 20 years ago, I said harsh things about them 4 years ago, and I will not, I cannot possibly support because of that, that would be silly. In the context where Congress is finally doing what we really wanted it to do, we wanted the Congress to take on the BJP, and not just the BJP, the RSS. It's the core of it. The Congress finally in this Bharat Jodo Yatra, they are doing. Not only that, they are also talking of crony capitalism. They are talking of diversity and how to protect diversity. So in that situation, it should be my duty to support that. So if my house is on fire, and if someone rushes with a bucket of water, I would not say, but the bucket is not green. Go back, get a green bucket, it's red. I would not say, well, yesterday your son broke the glass of my house. That would be silly. Yeah? That's the situation we are in, and that's what we are doing.
You have very pointedly, very clearly stated why you are with Bharat Jodo Yatra. Now, Bharat Jodo Yatra is continuing for more than 3 months. So, do you think that the Yatra has already achieved its objectives? Or what do you want to say on that count?
Depends on what you expect its objectives to be.
No.
For people like me, the objective was that in this climate of hopelessness, in the climate of almost loneliness, anyone who opposes this regime feels lonely in the neighborhood, in the office, in the WhatsApp group. Let
me frame the question a little differently. That means because we also want our audience to know about it. So, what was precisely the objectives of Bharat Jodo Yatra?
If I go by what Rahul Gandhi says, who's currently leading the Yatra, the object was to combat the politics of hatred and to bring out the real issues of this country, the real issues of poverty, unemployment, inequality, and highlight the state of democracy. For people like me, the objective was very simple. The entire country has, there is a climate of hopelessness, of loneliness, of despair and fear. कुछ कर दोगे ईडी रेड हो जाएगा, आईटी रेड हो जाएगा, whatever. In that climate, and when something like this happens, then the response cannot be just speaking on television. The response cannot be writing articles. The response has to be on the street. Whenever there is a big challenge to a nation or democracy, the answer is not courts. The answer is not parliament. The answer is people on the street.
We have seen that.
Exactly. In Nepal, in Sri Lanka, everywhere. So that is what, for people like me, the real hope was that this yatra will break the spiral of silence. It has done so. For me, the hope was that it would help raise the real issues of this country, issues of unemployment, of poverty, of inequality, and of democratic institutions. And I would not say these issues have become the dominant issues. No, the mainstream media is still captured by this government. There are few voices of dissent, but generally mainstream media has been captured. But at least these issues have begun to be raised. So for me, the objective of Bharat Jodo Yatra was not electoral at all. I'm sure some Congress leaders will expect those gains as well, and they're entitled to those expectations. But for me, that's not the expectation. As long as the silence was broken, I would say the yatra is done. But the yatra's real job begins after the yatra is over. The yatra should be over by the end of January. The idea is to go to Kashmir, to go to Srinagar specifically.
I shall come to that. I have
Please
a
do. Yes.
specific question
That's
after the end of the Yatra. What
Yeah.
after the end of the Yatra?
Yeah.
So you said that okay, nothing was there. It was complete silence, and now with this Yatra, you have broken that silence. So people have actually started. Actually, they have started speaking up. So, in that sense, the initial objective is, in a way, a shift that there is something, and it's not a simple thing. It's not a you see ordinary, simple, silly things that a group of people on the street for more than 3 months.
Yeah. It's nearly 100 days now.
100
Yeah.
days now, and we in independent India, not even before even the independence, there's something like this continuously on the street is actually something extraordinary, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. I mean, we've had some precedents. For example, Chandrasekhar ji had walked from Kanyakumari to Delhi in 1984. With a small group of about 300 to 500 people, he walked there. That was very good, and that had actually had a deep impact on the country. But for the tragic assassination of Mrs. Gandhi, the political history of this country could have been very different. There have been, Vinoba Bhave had that Bhudan Yatras all over the country. But this yatra, basically one major political party galvanizing all its cadre and requesting people outside the party to join. People like us who are not from Congress party, have no relationship to Congress party, said, all right, we join this, we associate with this. Just to make that one point about politics of hatred, Nafrat chodo, Bharat Jodo. Nafrat is hatred. So I think this is a critical moment in the country's history where the nation stands up, because when the republic is challenged, if the republic is being dismantled, the only option is for the public to come out. And this is what is happening here. The public is coming out to defend the republic.
That's really very, very enriching. Now, see, in Bharat Jodo Yatra, Rahul Gandhi has played a very, very important role from the beginning. So, how do you see it? His role in Bharat Jodo Yatra. What is your
Well, Rahul himself would say he's just one of the yatris, but the fact is that he's not just one of the yatris, he's leading the yatra. And I think the yatra has shown a new Rahul Gandhi to the country. The impression that everyone had about Rahul Gandhi, I think largely because he's a slight introvert. He's not an extrovert kind of a person who would go out. And persons who are introvert and about whom there is not much known, then it's very easy to spread lies about them. So the image was that of a pappu. What is a pappu? Pappu is someone who's a bit of an idiot, doesn't know anything about what's happening in the country, is also someone who is entitled, lives in luxury, is disconnected, and is very arrogant. In the last 3 months, in the last 100 days or so, all these three images have been shattered. He's walking, you yourself walked with him. Now you can, the idea that he
But I
is...
never had such idea about Rahul Gandhi.
You did not. Yeah, I know. But nor did I, because I've known him for 15 years. But the image that was built, image that was created after spending hundreds of crores of rupees was spent in creating this image of a pappu. Because that suits Mr. Modi perfectly then. Yeah? Now, in the last 100 days, what have we seen? He's meeting anyone and everyone, hugging people, walking with them, child on his shoulder, all kinds of things. So he's clearly not an aloof person. Two, he cannot be that arrogant. He's meeting, in fact, Mr. Modi was stuck on a flyover for 20 minutes. He did not even lower the window shield. If you remember, in Firozpur, the Prime Minister was stuck on a flyover.
Yes.
And people from his own party came to greet him with flags of his own party, shouting Modi Jindabad. He did not even get down to say hello to them. So on the one hand, we have Mr. Modi. On the other hand, we have Rahul Gandhi, who's happy meeting, greeting, walking, hugging, and so on. So, and third, people said he's an idiot, doesn't know anything about this country. Now, you have met him. Probably you can share with the country whether what he knows about this country, what he does not know. Anyone who has met him, and I have met now hundreds of people after meeting Rahul Gandhi, everyone says, aha, he's quite serious, he's intelligent, he's actually very warm, he's very sincere. So the country is now beginning to see a new Rahul Gandhi. He may not be new. He may be the person he always was.
It may be discovery for the people,
for the country.
the country. But then he was always maybe like that. Now, when in Telangana, when I met him and you were also there, and I asked him that actually what is your achievement of this yatra. He made three very important observations. And he said first that, okay, maybe the UP to economic policies towards the end of the term was not good. Maybe there has to be some rethinking on that. Then he said that, okay, there are a large number of people in this country, actually they have such potential. Now they are maybe doing 5-6 lakhs rupee annual turnover things, but then they given a kind of proper atmosphere, they can go to 5-6 crore.
That's right.
Turnover. And then thirdly, she said that, okay, after this, that was perhaps 2.5 months or so, or maybe 2 months, that I have seen that in this country, the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, the religious minorities, OBCs, they're in a very, very bad shape. That is what he said. Okay. Now, coming to...
Which only goes on to show that he's actually had much better understanding of the country than anyone thinks he has.
Absolutely.
Invested in specifics and taking interest. So in a sense, he's discovering the country and the country is discovering him.
That's a good thing, actually, a happy thing. Now, okay, you wanted to say something and I just intervene. Now, this Bharat Jodo Yatra is going to end after, say, 2 months or so. And then what happens after
that is when the real job begins. The yatra was meant, to my mind, the yatra was meant to do only something very small, but very critical. Limited but critical, essential, namely to puncture the narrative. This government thrives on narrative. This government thrives on communication, creating perception and impression. So this is like a jadugar on the stage who's basically creating a little illusion, and you're all stuck watching him, because we are all into that awe. And the moment you actually see, no, the card that he's pricking from the air is actually come from his own sleeve. The moment you see that, the entire illusion shatters. That is what needs to be. So that has to be the first step, because this regime is like that big illusion, talisman. That has to be broken. The government has captured the narrative. This yatra is about challenging that narrative, no more. Or the beginning of the challenge to the narrative. I say the curtain of lies and illusion that is in front of our eyes. If someone can just poke a hole in that,
it goes.
Then that is the beginning. This yatra has poked a hole in that. So it's a very important step, but it's only the first step. Once you do that, then the job for people like us is actually to take that curtain apart and show the truth to the country. The truth about economic condition, the truth about how many people died in COVID in this country, the truth about what happened as a result of demonetization, the truth about what is happening at the Ladakh border and at the entire China-India border. All these things, the truth has to be told to the country. And after that, it is the job of political parties to put in their organizational work, carry it to the villages, and then convert it into political energy. So much work needs to be done after the yatra.
So there has to be, then this time comes the alternative building.
Yeah.
Immediately after this yatra.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. The country needs an alternative, and that alternative cannot happen automatically. So anyone who thinks that the yatra has done the job, now change will happen, that's a fool's paradise. No.
Yeah, good.
You have to start working.
Yeah, now a little bit away from this yatra, just about the contemporary Indian political scene. Because we have discussed enough on the yatra. Now, recently, as you know, that media in this country is almost, the mainstream media is fully controlled by this government. And recently, Adani also took over this NDTV. So, what is your call on it? How do you see this thing?
It's a straightforward situation. This happens in Russia, this happens in Turkey all the time. You have a media house which is independent. Among the many channels that you have, this was one channel which was struggling to give you an independent opinion. This was not anti-regime, this was just independent.
It was what media should be doing, actually.
Yeah, this is what media should be doing, just giving news, information, and giving spaces to voices.
Independently,
yeah, that's right. The government could not take it. And how do you silence this channel? I'm sure they must have tried the usual things, phone calls and the usual things did not work. What do you do then? Then you hint to a friend of yours in the corporate world, go and buy this. This is what they did. Now, essentially, Mr. Adani, who is known to be very close to Mr. Modi, I mean, this is no secret. Mr. Adani's relationship to Mr. Modi is not a secret. Mr. Adani steps in what is technically called a hostile takeover. I buy your company against your wishes, basically. That's what has happened. And Mr. Prannoy Roy did not want to sell his company, but because of a technical clause that they had because of some debt that they had taken in the past, they used that debt, that clause, and basically purchased that company. And this is clearly an attempt to silence the remaining independent voice in the Indian media. The rest are technical business details. I'm not interested in that. And Mr. Enram, who knows Indian media better than most of us do, he has said in a recent interview that...
I saw that interview.
Yeah, so he says that Mr. Ambani may have been coerced into selling his shares to Mr. Adani, because Mr. Ambani had some stakes.
Yes.
So essentially, so not to get into the technical, the entire route, the simple thing is, here is one channel which is giving independent news. How do we cut it out? We do a hostile takeover. So that voice is extinguished. And Ravish Kumar, the one voice that troubled them more than NDTV channel as a whole, because English channel they can tolerate. But Ravish Kumar speaking in Hindi, speaking to the people, and you know what a cult figure he is. So people say in order to silence one person, they bought the entire house, which is what happened. But I think Ravish's voice will not be silenced.
He has already started. And in that interview, and I also said something very interesting at Karan Thapar when he was asking him about this thing, that Advani is actually in the Times of Financial Times interview, Adani said that, okay, we want NDTV to be independent, but at the same time, if government is doing something good every day, that should also be praised.
All these are, this is PR, because Remember what happened when News 18 was taken over by Ambani's? News 18, the entire channel was taken over. That was not hostile takeover. It was taken over. All these nice things will remain independent, this, that, and the other. And look at what they are doing today. They're just megaphones of the government. So NDTV, I don't expect it to change overnight. But when the phone call comes from the boss, then NDTV will have to do what Mr. Adani wants. Mr. Adani has no interest in politics other than serving his friend, who happens to be the Prime Minister.
So, and his business interest, his own business interest.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, this is BJP is running this regime with control. All kinds of control. But don't you think that actually to run a regime only through control is also a strenuous thing?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it is a strenuous thing? How long in a country like India? So how long you can run the regime with control?
See, all dictatorial regimes have this problem. They run into difficulties because, frankly, what we are witnessing is an authoritarian regime. People might say, then how are you conducting this interview in an authoritarian regime? Because this is the model of 21st century authoritarianism, that you allow 1% voices to continue, and you do not have 100% control. You are happy with 99% control. You allow people like you and me to keep speaking. This is what happens in Russia. This is what happens in Turkey. This is the textbook model of authoritarian regime. The problem with the authoritarian regime is, after a point, fatigue sets in.
That is what actually I am aiming at. That it's difficult, no, because when you're running a free state, running a free administration, well, it happens. Sometimes things go wrong, sometimes things go right, but then also there are certain institutions that it is taken care of. But then you are 24 hours, you are trying to run a regime only through a strict control. And that too in a country like India. And even now, say, if we come to the state governments, there are many state governments where this BJP is not running the affairs. Though in a country like this, how do you see this scenario?
The two or three things militate against an authoritarian regime in the context of India. First is the federal character of India. Tamil Nadu will not take nonsense beyond a point. Bengalis will stand up. Assam has had a glorious history of standing up to regimes. So any attempt to impose homogenization on the country in the name of unity will come up against very severe resistance. Second, the social structure of this country is such that currently what the BJP is doing in the name of national unity, etc., is actually impose the dominance of the upper caste. The Prime Minister happens to be an OBC, but the regime that he is running is an attempt to bring back the Chaturvarna system. The OBC, SC and ST, now that they have tasted their rights, they have tasted constitutional freedoms, they will not take it beyond a point. The minorities, of course, will not take kindly to being crushed. You cannot keep 20 crore people silenced under your thumb for far too long. So all these things in our context militate against authoritarian regime for long. At the same time, we should not live under the illusion that sooner than later, automatically someone will challenge.
Automatically, nothing is going to happen. What I just want to say is that actually in today's India, though we see apparently that everywhere everything is very strictly controlled by them. But then if we see the objective situation and study the objective situation politically, culturally, and from the point of view of actually also linguistically, that we are a diverse society. This imposition, one nation, one thing, or whatever, it's actually an artificial construct,
Yeah.
an imposition.
It goes against the character of our soil. So there is a lot that can be used to create resistance. For all these are sources of resistance to me. These are important sources of resistance. At the same time, someone has to work and bring together these possible sources of resistance. Otherwise, they work at cross purposes. They simply evaporate in thin air. Someone has to bring these things together, and that is the task of those who love this country, who want to save the character of this country.
I want a little more insight from you on this particular thing. Because this is a diverse country, politically diverse, culturally diverse, and yet this regime is continuing and is trying to actually strengthen his, you see, control. Now, the people who speak against this regime, now what should be doing? How should they try to break this thing, and then on what should be the fundamental, what should be the other, say, conditions or principles or whatever commodities to unite this whole thing?
I call it the Swadharma of Bharat. It's a language which is unfamiliar and not many people appreciate it. By what do I mean by Swadharma? This dharma has nothing to do with Hindu, Muslim, or some such thing.
It's a characteristic.
Swadharma is your calling as a nation. Every nation has its own, has some principles on the basis of which it is constituted. The three principles that have run this civilization before colonialism, before constitution, these are Maitri, Karuna, and Shila. These are three almost Buddhist virtues. Maitri is about accepting diversity and saying we want to live as friends. Karuna, which today is secularism, federalism, all this comes from Maitri. Karuna is not pity. Karuna is compassion, deep compassion, which is what is expressed today in values like equality and socialism. These all emanate from Karuna. And Shil is about proper conduct. And Shil is the foundation of what we today call democracy. So the three core ideas of Indian Constitution are actually the three core ideas of our civilization, which has come from 3,000 years. Today, all those three ideas are under attack. It is the worst possible attack on the core values of our civilization and constitution. That is what we must defend. And how do we defend it? In three steps. There is an immediate struggle, there is a midterm struggle, there is a long-term struggle. The long-term struggle is to win a battle of ideas, because while we created the constitution and put all these virtues in the preamble to the constitution, after that we went to sleep. We have a constitution, all is well.
Yes.
No, you have to remind every new generation about the values of the constitution. You have to re-enliven the constitution after every 20 years.
And you have to practice it. You have to practice the constitutional values.
That's so it's a long-term cultural battle. RSS has worked for nearly 100 years. We should at least work for 100 months in order to defend this constitution.
You have so beautifully said that this is Sadharma. Sadharma, and again you say there are three elements of Sadharma. This is one is Maitri,
Karuna, Maitri, and Shil.
Karuna, Maitri, and Shil.
These These are values that flow from our civilization.
These
Values
are
that
our own identity. That means we can say that these are the Indian identities.
this is so. This is, if someone asks me what is the idea of India, this is the tripartite idea. This is the
And we need-
Triveni Sangam that constitutes India.
Yeah, and we need to borrow things from the West or
Absolutely.
the Europe, from anyone else.
So see,
Why
we
should
have learned. We should be open to learning from everyone. That is also our civilizational value.
Gandhi said it so nicely.
Yeah.
I keep my windows open.
closed.
I want you see the winds
to
of
come
all
from all
civilization
over.
come.
Yet
but
I
then
refuse to
don't
be blown off my
off
feet.
my feet.
This is my feet. My feet. So how I would express karuna, that would change. In 19th century, I would learn from European socialism, and I would say, okay, the way to express karuna is to critique capitalism. But it is flowing from my inner sense of
It is not
karuna.
external things, and we need to actually, and it is, you have put it so beautifully, and I think that actually, instead of course, we need to learn from others, but we have so much in India, and we can stand on our own ground, and we can actually try to help flourish those things.
This is what the national movement did. This is what Gandhi did. This is what Tagore did. They were so deeply self-confident people about our own civilization that they had no problem in learning from anyone else.
Anybody, they are open people, very free.
This is what we have done for thousands of years. This is what we need to do.
So that is
So
why
we have a long-term battle, which is a cultural battle. We have a short-term battle, which is up to 2024, because this regime must be changed by using democratic means. Another term for this regime is another generation of problems for this civilization. The BJP regime led by Mr. Modi, it has to go, and it is the bounden duty of everyone who loves this country to do everything at their command using non-violent and democratic peaceful means within our constitution to see to it that this regime goes. So, because that would then open the path for reconstruction, for repair, the damage that has already been done. Some repair and reconstruction is called for, which is what we would get into. It has to be a mix of that short term and the long term that we all have to get into. You know, I meet people and they say, Mr. Yadav, you're doing good job, well done, go ahead. And I say, nah, Baba, I don't want that. Please don't give me good wishes. You join.
yes,
You also do something. Na? You know, in Hindi they say, चढ़ जा बेटा सूली पे राम भली करेगा. You know, it's my cause. You go to the सूली, तुम चढ़ जाओ, मैं पीछे से ताली बजाऊंगा. No, that's not done. It's my country, it's your country, all of us. And if I want you to do something, I also should do something. All of us should contribute something. It is not easy. The battle is not easy. But please remember, this is a battle about saving the soul of this country. That is what we are involved in. And all of us have to contribute something to it.
and now thing is that you speak with so much confidence. Now that, okay, always you have been observing Indian politics, and now you are with this movement. I call it a movement. This Bharat Jodo Yatra, I call it a movement.
Sure.
So now your conviction, all these things coming to you, and when you are meeting with people on the street, so are you renewing your convictions all the time?
People tell me, will you succeed? They have money, they have media, they have Mr. Modi's charisma, and they have police, they have ED, and even judiciary is silent. Will you succeed? I say, all right. They have satta, but I have such. We have truth, satya. It's a satta versus satya. And I always remind them of this dialogue from Amitabh Bachchan movie, where he says, the younger brother comes and says to the elder brother, what have you got? I have bank balance, मेरे पास bank balance है, गाड़ी है, ये है, वो है, तुम्हारे पास क्या है? And he says, मेरे पास माँ है. That is my answer. You have money, you have machine, you have media, but I have Mother India. I have the soul of this country. I represent the values of this civilization. I have Mahatma Gandhi with me. I have Baba Sahib Ambedkar's constitution with me. We shall fight, we shall win.
Thank you very much for such a passionate, interview, and you speak with so much passion, and you also feel that it's not that okay you are doing something good. It's not alone that everyone should participate in. So thank you very much for this wonderful interview. Thank you.